Hey, welcome everyone. I am getting an echo for some reason. Let me... Check. 1 2 1 2. Check. 1 2 1 2. All right. Happy Friday, y'all. Great day here in the Bay Area. Welcome. I was having a little technical difficulties. Today's topic, we'll be talking about schema for SEO. With our guest today, Martha Van Berkel of Schema App. Stefan, what's up, my man? Every Friday, never a Friday you're not here. Thank you for the support, brother. So today's topics, we'll be talking about schema for SEO with the CEO, Martha Van Berkel of Schema App. She is also a co-author, a contributing author in the SEO in 2022 book, which we can talk about as well. If you have questions, please ask them while we're chatting, and I'll address them in the order that they are received. Don't forget to visit our sponsor, hrefs.com/AWT, and watch this logo. Submit your guess of how many times this logo shows up, and you will win a prize from Hrefs, t-shirts, notebook, stickers, mug. So be sure to check that out. Count the times this logo has popped up during the show. Ethan, my man, happy Friday. All right, so we got about 6 more minutes to go. Trying to get things going here. I actually got some new jams created for the show, if you've noticed. These are some new mixed in with the old ones. Don't forget to say hi when you join. Actually, let me go ahead and type that. Again, happy Friday, guys and gals. See a bunch of you out there. Today's topics, we'll be talking about schema for SEO and how schema came about and how come it became so popular. I mean, we talk about schema all the time here on the SEO video show. It's one of my favorite things to do in my SEO strategy. So we'll learn more about it, go in depth on it. We haven't really had an schema expert on the show, so this is our very first with Martha Van Berkel. Wow. Oh, Martha just joined the back room. Martha, how you doing?
Hey, ready to go.
Love it. Okay. So we got about 4 minutes to go. I have, in the very beginning, I go over a few videos that I find through the past week, and then I'll introduce you in. So we have a bunch.
Rock and roll.
We have a bunch of people in live chats. If you want to go ahead and log on to YouTube and chat there while you're waiting.
I'm in.
All right. And just make sure you put yourself on mute on there so we don't get a feedback. All right. Let's go see who's in live chat, guys. Marcelo Milano. What's up, my man? The queen of structured data. All right. Love it. Ethan. Hey, y'all. Happy Friday. Don't forget to tell me where you're from, guys. All right. We have Stefan. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Ernesto. Yo. Happy Friday, Dre. What's up, Kobe? Happy Fridays too. Oh man, I see Martha in the live chat. Happy Friday, everyone. All right, guys. Today's topics, we're going to be talking about schema for SEO. We haven't had a schema expert on the show yet, so I'm very, very excited. It's something we talk about every single week. We find someone talking about schema every week. So it's awesome to get a little knowledge bombs on schema. Brian, happy Friday, friends. All right, Carol Fry, hi. All right, guys, we got about 2 more minutes to go. Get your shout outs in. Be sure to ask questions while we are recording live, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Nubia Cohen. Hi, Martha and Dre. All right, guys, we're going to be talking about schema for SEO with the CEO of Schema App, Martha Van Berkel. Don't forget to visit today's sponsor, hrefs.com/AWT. And again, don't forget to count this logo and you'll get a free gift from Hrefs. Let me know how many times you see this logo pop up during the show and you'll get a free gift from hrefs.com. Adrian, hey Dre and SEO Video Show, happy Friday. And for those who haven't had a copy of this book, the SEO in 2022 book, Martha is a contributing author in this book as well. Let me know what page she's on. Put your guesses in and I'll send you a copy of this book for the one that's closest by. Again, SEO in 2022 book. Put in your guesses in. And if one person puts it in, hey, you win. So get it in there. All right, guys, we got less than 1 minute to go. I'm going to get things ready here. Don't forget to get shouts out. We got 45 seconds. Oh yeah, Adrian, you got your gift. Love it, love it. Okay, 10 seconds to go, guys. I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah. Hey, time to get it started, no delay, let's work. Wanna see you be an SEO expert. Paul Andre De Vera, steady dropping knowledge. Over 15 years in the game, so he knows all about it. Master the art of SEO, you will be amazed. Time to get your brand off page to on page. Dropping knowledge, legendary for sure. Whether you're just getting started or self-employed entrepreneur. Yeah, let's go. Subscribe to the SEO Video Show. Hey.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the SEO Video Show where SEO is alive and fun. My name is Paul Andre De Vera, aka Dre, and I curate SEO videos released in the past week into about 1 minute clips. My favorite part of the show is when I get to introduce my guest, and my guest this week is the CEO of Schema App, Martha Van Berkel. Before we get started, let's say what's up to everyone in chat. I see Adrian, Brian, Martha, Massimiliano, Ethan, Stefan, Ernesto, Kobe, Carol, Nubia. Wow, there's so many of you out there. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thomason, I see you. Now let's get on with the show.
This is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. How did the SEO find their way back through the woods? Breadcrumbs.
Google I/O happened this past week, and John Muller shared the latest on Google's search for site owners. Let's check out the new video on page indexing for video page indexing in the Google Search Console.
With the new tools, you will be able to see how many video landing pages Google discovered and in how many of them a video was indexed. Examine reasons for unindexed videos in video landing pages. Use the list of affected video pages URLs to debug and fix issues. Validate fix to initiate recrawling of known URLs affected by the issue. And check the video indexing status of a specific video using the URL inspection tool. I hope this helps streamline the publishing of videos on your site, bringing you more users through search.
I'm a huge advocate when it comes to video marketing. I mean, video is a great way to connect with your audience, like what I'm doing today. Okay, does the read more or the video view more button still work in SEO? You know, when you have to click on it and you see more text? John Lincoln shows us how you can check if it's still working for you.
The first thing I want you to do is take that text that's underneath the JavaScript and put it into Google search. Do a search for that text, and when you do that, does your web page come up? If it does come up, then Google is probably finding the text. If it doesn't come up, then Google might not be seeing that text at all, which is problematic because it means it has no value. The next thing I want you to do is install the website development toolbar for Chrome. And when you do that, there is a little option on there to turn off JavaScript. If you turn off JavaScript and go to the web page and you don't see the text, then you know that that text isn't being deployed in a way that's going to be easily indexed by Google. That's really important and a red flag. In general, that's a good SEO rule of thumb, everybody. You want to make sure that you have all of your HTML, all of your text, your images visible without it having to be rendered by JavaScript. In many cases, that won't work well for Google because Google doesn't always render JavaScript well. Yes, they are getting better at it, but they're definitely not there yet.
John actually goes in to say that this tactic is outdated. I mean, this tactic still works like a charm if you're implementing using CSS, particularly CSS accordions for like FAQs. Okay, speaking of SEO Chrome extensions, Chris M. Walker just released a new video on his top 20 Chrome plugins. This particular one I use every day, and it's cheap. Let's check it out.
Next up, we have another one that I consider an absolute must-have, to the point that I have use this so long that when I go to somebody else's computer that doesn't have it or something like that, the search, like Google search, looks naked without it there. Because what this will do is keywords everywhere. What it will do is show you the keyword volume or the search volume for that particular term when you search it. Now it's based on their own metrics, so you know, determine what you feel is right and what isn't. But it's also going to show you a whole bunch of related terms that you can make content on or try to rank for or analyze or whatever right there in your browser. It's just so powerful. It's such a great tool. It is paid, but like I've had it since they switched from completely free to paid, and I have paid, I think, $20 for tens of thousands of searches. So the price is very inexpensive, and it's worth every penny. If you do any kind of SEO, I consider this to be an absolute must-have. That's keywords everywhere.
Two other extensions I have installed on my Chrome that I use regularly are SEO Minion and Grammarly. Okay, internal linking tips from Bjon from Content Distribution. Let's check this one out.
Number one, let's talk homepage. It's gonna sound simple, but this is what our team does each and every single time. Set up a module that's gonna fetch the most recent articles on your homepage. Yep, that's it. Recent posts, 6 or 9, depending on your publishing velocity, just have them there. Number two, navigation menu and footer. Let's look at an example on Berkel.com. Apart from the most important stuff for a SaaS product, like features, pricing, social links, we have a link to our playbooks page, which represents a gateway into our content site. And through playbooks to our most important subcategories. Now let's talk about the footer. I'll use an example of what we did on Berkel as well. You want to have your most important articles in the footer, and you want to have your most important categories. All right, number 3, and this is a really big one, even though if it doesn't seem like that, it's so easy to implement, and that's breadcrumbs. There's a number of ways of doing this in WordPress, through plugins, and via custom solutions. It's a half-day job, but such a powerful lever. let's look at how they're set up on Berkel. You see, breadcrumbs clearly define the structure of your website. In this example, 0 to 1.5 organics per month is an SEO playbook by Berkel. See what we mean when we say connecting dots into a big picture?
We always talk about internal linking here on the SEO show, and the other thing we always talk about is schema. This brings me to my favorite part of the show, but be sure to ask your questions and I will address them in the order that they receive. Before we get started, let's don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. But before I introduce our guest, here's a word from our sponsor. Are you sick of your competitors outranking you in the search results? Your solution is Ahrefs Webmaster Tools, and it's free $99. This isn't one of your 14-day free trial offers. Instead, it's a super powerful tool that'll do a full website audit for you and keep working for you for free. It'll scan your site and prioritize precisely what you need to fix and improve for your search results. Visit ahrefs.com webmaster-tools for this free tool. Find the link below, and by checking our sponsors, you support this show. Now let's introduce our guest. Martha has spent 14 years at Cisco as an entrepreneur, product manager, leader, and program manager. She's a seasoned leader and knows how to build teams, sell ideas, and explain complicated technology in simple terms. She holds a Bachelor's of Science in Mathematics and Engineering from Queen's University, a certificate in Strategy and Innovation from MIT. She is the co-founder and CEO of Hunch Manifest. Please welcome the face and voice of Schema App, Martha Van Berkel.
Woo, 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 woo.
Martha, welcome to the show.
What's up? This is so fun. Oh my goodness, it was like a flashback of all my bad haircuts through that introduction. Nice.
Welcome. All right. So you are you are a contributing author to this SEO in 2022 book. I read about you in here, and also saw many videos. I actually played a few videos when I first started the show of some video clips of you when it came to schema. I'm a big believer in schema, and I'm delighted to learn more about it today. But for those, again, I'm holding a little contest. If you guys know, put in a number in the live chats. What page does Martha's tips start on? And I'll send you a copy of this book. All right, so check that out. But before we get started, I asked this question to all my SEO professionals that join. In 1 minute or less, how does Martha get ranking on page 1 of Google?
But writing really specific content and doing awesome schema so that I get to answer those questions that people have with something that's robust and eye-catching.
Love it. First knowledge bomb of the day. Okay, let me rewind this real quick. Martha, you have to tell us a story way back. Take us way back on how you first got into SEO.
It's interesting. I was first exposed to SEO while I was still at Cisco. So my role there was actually on all the technical support tools for cisco.com/support. So where people went to have help. And it was one of those things where we're like, why isn't on-site search working? Mm-hmm. And the simple answer was because people are Googling it, right? They're not looking to come to Cisco and use our on-site search. Instead, they're actually trying to find it. And, again, my tools were all the bugs, all the release notes, all the things that, you need to find in order to support your tools. Mm-hmm. And so that was my first exposure to SEO. And then, through my entrepreneurial journey, we sort of by accident became an agency as we were coaching people and built tools around your online presence. Mm-hmm. And then really sort of focused in on structured data since my co-founder is a semantic technologist. Oh. And that was what he was most passionate about. And the rest is history.
Love it. Okay, so take us a little bit. Take us to that journey. You said you kind of accidentally became an agency. How that happened? How did someone just ask you to do it for them, and then it's hey, you know what? We can do this for so much more other people.
Well, it's funny. So like I had dreamt that I would be at Cisco my whole career.
Okay.
Like I
Yeah.
never thought I would leave. And but I married this guy called Mark Van Berkel who had this entrepreneurial goal. And so he was sort of exploring. I was like, go be an entrepreneur. Great. Like I'll just keep doing my Cisco thing.
Okay.
And so he started working on amazing technology and sort of one of the first ideas that he was exploring was like, could we automate and use like almost like AI to recommend how you manage your online presence and
Mhm.
thinking more of like the SMB market. And so he had sort of built this tool that like made recommendations and that had these like easy to follow tasks and tools, similar to your tips that you open up with, only to find out, that the SMBs didn't want to do it. And sort of while he was journeying on that process, I became a mom and I
Mhm.
was kind of bored because I was like not working. In Canada, we take a year off when we have kids. And so
Mhm.
I was like, well, let me see if I can sell this, right? Let me see if anyone's interested. And so by nature of selling that first product, we started learning about SEO. We were in essence like trying to productize SEO. And
Yeah.
and then as we were doing it, no one wanted to do the work. And so we did it for them, right? Anyone
Mhm.
who's an agency knows that, like there's never enough time. And so, I believe that like anytime you delve into something new, like you have to become an expert in it as well. So here are the two of us, more kind of product technology strategists, on this entrepreneurial journey, where some people start off like learning about SEO and we had to
Mhm.
learn and teach it, make it repeatable. And that's when we actually first started doing structured data. So we joke that in like 2013, 2014,
Mhm.
when most people weren't doing structured data, we were doing structured data for SMBs
Oh.
because we thought it was super cool and nerdy. And it wasn't until we were generating JSON LD before Google supported it.
Yeah.
And so I'll never forget Aaron Bradley, who's a great semantic scientist, met up with Mark at one of the conferences, and it was like, too bad Google doesn't support JSON LD. It'd be awesome. I know you guys, and we'd built our first version of Schema App by then. And then it was August 2015. And at this point I was having too much fun being an entrepreneur and working with customers, but we weren't making any money, right? Like
Uh-huh.
the piece there is like, sometimes when you're working with SMBs and you're trying to find product market fit, it takes time,
Yeah.
right? To figure that out. So in 2015, Google announced support for JSON LD. And we basically 1 month later rewrote our website to say we were a semantic search marketing firm, which
Mhm.
if you go to hunchmanifest.com, that same language is there. And Schema App was born. And so we actually opened up Schema App for beta, our editor, for all the sort of super nerds who were already doing schema markup who want to generate sort of nested professional sophisticated markup at scale.
Mhm.
And that's the rest. Basically we fired our clients after that and focused on Schema App.
Love that story. Love the journey there. So I want to even take it back, rewind again a little bit, but I want to know, you said you were learning it and teaching it. So how were you actually learning it then, if at this point? I mean, you knew like Scheme was out there, but Google wasn't supporting it. But so on the SEO portion, like how were you learning it?
So I'm a big learner by doing,
Okay.
right? Like so it's not so much like I'm less of like a book reader, but then I want to like get my hands dirty and kind of get in. So, we had a WordPress site, so we started learning about keywords. So we started learning about sort of, how we use Ahrefs, right?
Yeah.
And tools like that to say like, well, how do we then action that? How do we, and then again, like one of my skills that you had in my intro is like, I'm good at like removing complexity, like trying to explain things in simple terms or summarize them, and then eventually sort of match that to the business piece. And so a lot of it was learning and doing like on our own stuff.
Mhm.
And Schema was one of those things where I got the privilege of basically being schooled by a semantic technologist. Like semantic tech is sort of what drives structured data. And
Mhm.
so I learned about ontologies and graphs. And my summary of it is like, when you think of a database, like often we're like, how does the database structured, right? And you're just going to kind of put all your data in.
Mhm.
And with semantic technology, instead of just thinking of your data in a structure, you're also going to define relationships. And so, that's why, I always use my knowledge graph to introduce
Yeah.
myself because it's my relationship to Cisco, Canada, my Kevin Bacon, is my fun kind of tip. But it's those relationships that then allow you to do inferencing, which is what gets so, is actually why Google uses it as well. And it's very scalable, right? So if you think about like, I have to do my schema markup on my website, that might be small if you're an SMB, it might be larger if you're an enterprise, but then try to think of like Google trying to solve that problem for millions and millions and millions of websites, and they all have to work together. So the semantics and the relationship allows it to be very dynamic. So I had sort of the fortitude or the luck to be able to kind of understand, the why kind of behind the technology before I kind of dug into to having to do it.
I love that. I mean, because even right now, I think schema can be very intimidating. And when people look at it, I mean, when you have to sit down and kind of look at it and then kind of maybe color code it and then you can understand it. So like with you, like, you said you like, teaching things and making things a lot more simpler. For someone that just trying to get into schema and understand schema, what would be your tip to them to like grasp the idea of schema?
Well, I think, I think there's difference of understanding the concept of like the vocabulary versus like writing JSONology. Okay. So I like to separate those two things, because if you understand the concepts, there's generators and tools and other things out there that will help you sort of get over the technical, the coding part. And so for those that are beginning and trying to explore, like I really think of schema and schema.org because of the vocabulary, like it's a language. So just like we would speak like English or French or Spanish or Japanese and so forth, like it's a vocabulary, like it's a language. And so when we're thinking about using it, it's like, well, what are we trying to explain? And so when you think of your website, it's like, well, what is this? What is the primary entity? And I know you love talking about entities, but like, what is the primary topic, right, that you're trying to write about? And we often ask almost the philosophical question of like, what is this thing? What is this thing you're trying to describe? And what is this thing that like your customers are trying to find, right? And you can like use their words, right? And think about it. And then the vocabulary is allowing you to articulate that. So we do a lot of work with healthcare. So, a physician's a really interesting one because it's described in schema.org as a local business. But we all know physicians are also people, right? So then you're saying like, so it's a physician, right? We know it's a physician but it's also a person. So as you get more advanced, you can be like, it's actually both those things together, which is called a multi-type entity. But you go to schema.org and be like, okay, is there a physician? Is there a local business? Is there, it's a contact page, or it's an about page. It's a page about something, and it's like it's a product, right? So when you start there, and then you think of the properties more of just like, how am I going to describe this thing? So I have this product, like what are all the things on the page that I need to describe? And, e-commerce is easier to understand, right? Like there's pictures on it, right? There's a price. Price is called an offer in the schema.org vocabulary, right? And it's sort of nested. And so I think if you just like try to simplify it that way, it's just like, oh, I'm just describing one thing and then all the things about it. And there's like usually like 40 to 50 things. And then Google makes it easier to say, well, it only really cares about these 8 things. So then you can, use it almost, I like it because you can use it to like backwards engineer your content, strategize about how you want that journey to start in the SERP. But it really comes down to like you're describing something and using the content on the page to figure out how you can categorize those descriptions.
Excellent!
All right, love it. Okay, so we got our first question for the audience. Hannah asks, do you have any courses on schema? Is this something that you teach?
We do, and we're going to do more. So I guess is the piece there. So if you're looking for just like super high level, like I'm trying to understand this and explain it to, let's say your manager or like a peer, we have a free 5-day course. If you do free 5-day course Schema App, like it'll pop up, and it's just like 5 emails of basically that I've written, like describing what it is. If you Google Advanced Bootcamp Schema App, we actually put together a bootcamp back in like 2017, 2018. And a lot of it's actually my co-founder, Mark, talking about the semantics and why it's from. All the videos are there for free. We used to charge $400 for it, but it's there. It's about 4 hours is what we put our team through when we're like trying to explain what it is. Go look at it. And then we are working and thinking about building a course on like how to become certified, sort of knowledge. So stay tuned.
Love it. Hopefully that helps you, Hannah. And we got more info. The certification is also always cool. I mean, something you can put on your LinkedIn, help your personal brand, your professional brand. You understand this. I mean, because I know a lot of people are looking for it again, and this is something that's I truly believe in. I wanted to go into the book. I mean, you are a contributing author in the book, and
you too.
Yes. And everyone, again, I'm not saying any guesses. Just throw in some numbers out there. You'll get a copy of this book. I know some of you already have this book.
It's good. I recommend it.
You guys are regulars, and I sent a bunch of these out to you guys. And I want to talk more about, because I mean, I love video, and you talk a little bit more about video here on video schema. Can you tell us more about, like, tell the audience a little bit, for those that haven't been able to read this book on video schema?
Well, and there's new video stuff, right? Like, so, I loved the Google I/O intro. This is the second year that Bjon Muller and his team have focused on video with their like big search update.
Yeah.
Last year it was really about video schema markup. It's also, this year around more like, make sure they're indexed, make sure they're found, but like really, really interesting kind of focus on video. Video clips and moments was something that also has come out recently. Videos are interesting, and I would say, like, I often think about from like, why is Google focusing here, right?
Yeah.
versus anything else. And I think part of it is like they own a lot of video, like through YouTube. Like there's a lot of sort of things that video already is like by nature, sort of like they're able to found, and they have a lot of that data around it. And so I wonder if some of that piece is there. But I think the other one is like, it's very personal and connecting. And what I love about video, especially like you can nest video on any page, right? And in the schema markup. And so it's like another way for people to consume data. But like interesting video, yeah, we're having like everyone use video, but also make sure it's very specific. So my whole piece, specificity, I think was like my key theme in the book. And part of this was just, as Google is using structured data to answer intent and questions, right?
Okay.
How do you make sure that you're getting to that piece of content that's right there? And the story I usually tell is how a long time ago, a customer was like, oh, like I want to optimize my product on my website. And I was like, great. Like, what page is talking about your product? And they were like, it's like across 8 pages. And I was like, great. So like, which page do you want Google to actually point the searcher to do that? And video is super fun because you can nest video on there. It can describe your product. It can get them engaged. And also kind of, as you know, through people who love your show and go through it, like also, if you land on YouTube, which then Google owns and can show ads on and make more money, right? It also shows other relevant content and so forth, sort of keeping you in the rabbit hole. So I think Google's motivated by it because it helps them make more money, I think is one piece of it. But it's also the user can get super engaged and it can be used in structured data across the board.
Oh, I love that. I didn't think about it that way, where you supply that and they'll show you through other relevant content through like their other platforms. I love that. Okay, we actually got something that came in here from Brian, a longtime watcher here. We asked, which has more ranking power, FAQ schema used on FAQ section on the bottom of an article page, or a full FAQ dedicated page?
Oh, FAQ. I love FAQ. Actually, I have something I've saved. I haven't announced yet, Dre, that I like saved for your show.
Oh, yeah.
Around FAQ. So I wanted to give you this nugget. But let's address the question coming from Brian first. So should you do like a page that's all FAQ, or should you do a page about a specific topic, a specific piece, and then talk about the FAQs related? I just talked about specificity. So the answer is I like the module on the topic, right? I think these like FAQ long pages are kind of dead, right? Because if Google's trying to actually reward you the FAQ, we need to make sure it's like actually on a question or on a topic that they're looking for. And that's likely not going to be, like our whole organization, right? It's going to be about something more specific. And so I like it when you're thinking about your site, about those key things that your customers are trying to find or your consumers are trying to find. The FAQ is in context of those things. And frankly, like if they have a big long FAQ page, I want to break that up and put it on the site in the places it's most relevant.
Love it. Specificity.
Specificity. I know, it's a hard one.
There we go, guys. All right, Brian, I hope that answers your question. All right. Give us a little sneak peek of what you were just talking about. I want to get into that.
Sure.
Let's get into that.
So on April 8th, we saw a pretty big drop in FAQ performance, both impressions and clicks. And so we've been kind of like waiting a little bit to get more data. So we've been looking at sort of like 30 days before April 8th, and now we have 30 days after April 8th. And we're seeing like, of all of our clients, only 35% of them saw a gain. The rest saw like, I'll say like not a full drop, but like a reset in sort of how they were performing on FAQ. And of the 35% that saw gains, it wasn't just in one industry. It was across tech, it was e-commerce, hospitality, as well as healthcare. So it was sort of like not, sometimes when we see these changes, like it really just hits tech, or it really just hits e-commerce, or it really just hits hospitality. We saw the gainers like kind of across the board. Now the good news is like the first 2 weeks after sort of this I'll say like correction, and you can see it in the Moz like weathercast, like you can see like FAQ rich results kind of came high and then they kind of dropped to a new low. We're actually seeing gains. So 50% of our customers 2 weeks after this change are now seeing growth again. So it's, you know, we're seeing fluctuation in the FAQ world. However, like we still see it performing really well. You just have to make sure that content's good. So just to my earlier question, you know, make sure that those FAQs, they're not the same across your site, they're relevant to the content, and more importantly, they're actually like answering the questions either your support team's getting, your sales team is getting, your administrative staff is getting, that's going to answer them and really blow their minds at the beginning of that search experience.
Love it. All right, dropping all these knowledge bombs. Okay, Martha. So I wanted to go into like the amount of schema, because you know, like even stuff like this, like can someone, is there a limit to the amount of schema we can put on a page, or I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Like, can we just, because you said you talk about multi entities. I remember you talking
multi-type entities. Yeah. So I think there's like, I want to kind of go back. There's a really great Google podcast that came out at the beginning of April, where Ryan Levering, who is one of the structured data engineers, was talking actually about their journey through structured data. And sorry, I have to do an aside here, Dre, but it's like super funny. They were like, it's really, really hard to help generate markup. And so we went to just like having everyone generate and consume it. And it was like the year we built Schema Apps Highlighter. So I was like laughing. I was like, thanks, Google, for not solving the hard problems. That created an opportunity for me. So the funny part, though, that he talks about is that they do use structured data across the Google experience. And that in addition to that, what they're doing is they're using the structured data when their machine learning isn't quite there. So the reason I bring this up is that I often say when you're doing your structured data strategy, we need to try to get measurable results. We all know we have to get budgets to do this. We have to invest resources. And so I like doing structured data when like it's measurable. So rich results for content that we can get, you know, that we can measure, that we can really show the ROI. However, while you're doing that, you also want to make sure that you're being explicit or clear about sort of the things that make that unique, or that make sort of your industry clear, or the EAT, like who sort of the people are. So in physicians, I like to use the example of like, where are they alumni of? Or if it's like, you know, I'm the author of the article, let's make sure my profile page is describing who I am as a CEO and founder and an expert in this space. So I would say like, what is the right amount of structured data? Part of it is like, what on your site is rich result eligible? You know, what can you actually measure the impact of? And then make sure that you're using the properties, maybe even beyond the required ones, in order to articulate what the specific thing is. So that's how I usually attack it. It's all about ROI though, right? Like you have to be able to prove and show that evidence. So like Speakable was another one that Ryan Levering, Dave Ojeda asked him, he's like, what about Speakable? Is anyone using it? Like, you guys haven't talked about it. It's been in beta for a long time. And Ryan's like, yeah, actually we use it across the teams, which I was kind of surprised about, because since they announced FAQ schema, I'm like, they're getting a lot of the Speakable type of stuff through FAQ. But he says they're using it, to which I responded, when are you going to get us a chance to measure it? And he said they're working on it. So hope baby.
Yes,
dropping
that.
Do things you can measure.
Yes.
Do things you can measure.
All right. Things we can measure, but also I'm curious, because you know, on the show we do get a lot of guests, or even people who are watching. I love testing and stuff. I mean, is there any certain schema that you've been testing that you've been seeing certain results on, like that have been popping things out, or like, you know, bringing more ROI?
Yeah. So one that I'll say is like has winners and losers, and I wouldn't say I have like a hard recommendation yet.
Okay.
So category pages on e-commerce are hard right now,
Okay.
right? So with the sort of Google trying to get the user to the most specific page, they're trying to go to like a PDP page or like a very specific product page. And so then the question is like, how do you get eyes on your category page, right? Like, how do you do all this work? And so we've been testing FAQ on category to see sort of like, can you get your category to have frequently asked questions that are relevant to the category show up? And we've seen some big winners and we've seen some like not work at all. But the ones that are achieving rich results there, like we're seeing in one example, like the category pages had like less than 1% click-through rate, and the ones that are getting rich results are getting like an 11% click-through rate. So, it's one that again is worth trying. But again, the content, like the questions are very important. And I think it works even better like if you're in a very niche product space in order to do that.
Love it. Okay, we have a comment here from INFP Jeremy. Just bought the SEO in 2020 book on Amazon. Looking forward to reading both of your sections. Thank you for purchasing that. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Thank you. Okay, we got another question that just came in from Thomason. When is using schema manipulative, and are there consequences? Lily Ray shared an example on Twitter today from one of Verywell's website using review on an article and same as of the author. All same as of the author.
Yes. So where I see Google being like the hardest, and I would say like I haven't seen a ton of this more recently. Like I would say this was like a hot topic back in 2019 is around reviews and ratings. So I would say like, if it's not on the page and you don't own that content, like Google basically doesn't want you to mark it up. So, and they've been pretty deliberate about that. Like local business, it's very hard to get a rating. Physicians are an exception there. But like I would say ratings are where they're very stringent and where I've seen penalties. Okay, so that's one area to sort of be very thoughtful of. Also kind of brought up in this podcast at the beginning of April, Ryan Levering was talking about schema drift. Now, schema drift is where, you can't actually like the schema markup doesn't represent what's on the page. And one of the key guidelines with structured data is that you have to like match what the user can see with what is on the back end. So I would say like you're being manipulative if you're adding structured data that doesn't actually exist on the page. And so those things have to be aligned. And Google was saying like that's actually a lot of the verification they're doing today in sort of where they're where they're investing sort of checking things that they're aligned. So follow the guidelines. Be honest, make sure, do the hard work to get the content on the page and make sure you own the content and just be thoughtful about how you're using ratings. That's where I see Google sort of coming down the hardest.
Love that. Okay. I mean, there's one way I use schema, but it's not necessarily on the page, but it relates to other pages. Like, it's like mentions. Is that something like that it's okay using like referencing other things?
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Mentioned? So, okay.
Yeah, so I like mentions, like especially if you're trying to define terms. So, we use this thing, we call it linked entity recognition. It's like very dorky of us, but like how do you link like definitions of topics to things? And so like things like the knowledge graph or to Wikipedia or so we love doing that. And it's again sort of it's one of those things where like your intent is to be clear, right? So your intent is to specify so there's clarity. So I think that intent of using it in that way is good.
Love it. Okay, well, the questions are coming right in. Let me see one. We got one from here from Brian. Do you agree with these monster schemas people are manufacturing with schema plugins placed in the header, or better to stick with specific schema properties on a per page basis?
I can reword this in a way that I often get asked if that's helpful, Dre. So I often say like peanut butter schema markup, which is like where you're basically doing like similar or same markup across the website versus like I use like using the scalpel and being really specific. Now I'm speaking from like a semantic clarity type of like expertise versus like just get schema on the page. And so like we often say in Jono at Yoast and I are friends, right? Like, so they do a lot of website markup. Now in the website, they're talking about like what is on the web page, versus web page markup. And I think that's too generic because I'm like, of course it's a web page, like Google's smart, like what's the page talking about? And so the schema.org vocabulary has like 842 different ways to describe things. So like, use that power, right? Google's trying to understand what it's about. So don't put I don't like organization markup. I loathe when people put that on every page. If someone's looking for your company, which page are they going to point to? Be specific, point them to where you want to go. Now, what we like to do is that you can still refer to its connection to your organization. So if it's a product and the organization is the manufacturer, great, link it there.
Oh,
If
okay.
it's an article and the author works for an organization, great, link to the author, and the author is going to be connected to your organization. Remember, Google understands these connections and they'll follow that sort of thread there. And that's actually I would say when structured data becomes really powerful and becomes truly the knowledge graph for your business, or the way that a technical robot can consume your information in a structured way.
Love it. Thank you for that. Okay, we got another one here from Massimiliano. I've seen AI e-tour crazy course on schema, all based on keyword stuffing. A word property with values like best planner in New York. In my experience, this is risky and useless to do. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, someone recently reached out to me on Twitter and asked me to look at a car dealership where they had listed every single postal code, right, as to
Yeah.
provide service in, and I'm a sort of I'm a summarizer, right? So it's I don't know, if you call out the county or you call out sort of the area, Google's pretty smart, right? They know how to kind of connect those dots. So I don't like the keyword stuffing. Again, just be specific, and I Dre, you sort of use that you sometimes use mentions,
Yep.
or I love about is one of my favorite pieces, and you can link to kind of key topics. You don't have to add 20 of them, right? If the page is about 20 things, it's not very specific. It's not going to answer that question. And so reconsider that, right? So I'm a big believer that we've moved away from keywords to entities, and that's that journey started way back when they first did schema.org. If you read sort of some of the old documentation. So I say I wouldn't do that. But if you have tests that showed evidence that it works, go for it. But from my standpoint, I don't see that working in schema.
Love it. Okay, we got one more that snuck in before we continue on with a couple of my questions I had still left. Hi, Martha. Do you find schema to help e-commerce sites?
Absolutely. In fact, I think e-commerce is one of the ones where we see a lot of scale happening, right?
Okay.
So we do work with Shopify and BigCommerce, but yes, you can decorate it with so many different things. A product can get rating, price, availability, shipping is even available. So there's lots, especially on those product detail pages, I would say. I actually saw a really amazing result yesterday, and it was actually a category page that had the FAQ, that then had an image of the product category, that then had a product detail page listed below it. Wow. With the frickin' ratings underneath and the price. And I was like, booyah. Oh, yeah. And the product had a small icon image next to it. Now, one of our clients, and I was like, this is the best practice. Look at this go, right? So yes, it works really well. And I think with e-commerce, think beyond products as well. So if you're really one of your benefits or one of your sort of tenants is amazing customer service, then answer those key questions you get with returns and so forth, with your FAQs, and really delight them. Don't make me look for that information. If I'm pissed about my product and I want to return it, make it easy for me to return it. And then you can delight them and do the customer service element too. And then if you're writing articles, don't just think of strange articles, think of video, think of how-tos, think of FAQ sort of as you go through those articles as well.
Love it. Okay, so I want to go back to that one thing where you said one of your clients was able to, I guess maybe take up 3/4 of a page with all that real estate. I mean, so what would be your tips on trying to recreate that? I mean, you don't have to give us your client, but I mean, we're curious, what did they do to get that massive real estate with all schema?
So when I think about schema markup, it's really this cyclical journey. So you start with strategy, and the strategy is really what do I want my page to look like in the SERP? It's as simple as that, right? And then you have to backwards engineer that, right? So like, okay, well, if I want to get an FAQ on my category page, then, and I want to have a cool image, I need to like have an image on that page. I have to have really good FAQ. And so actually then goes to working with your content teams to say like, how are we going to architect these pages, not just to meet the consumer needs and the interaction in the UI, but also for how we want it to be designed and show up in the SERP. And then you actually get that content on there. Then you do the structured data. You measure the impact, right? You then sort of stay on top of what else is going on in trends. You learn something else, and then you go through that process again. And like in our case, like that's what we do at Schema App. Like, so that's actually, you know, we're not just a tool. We have a customer success team, and that strategy, that cyclical strategy, and working cross-functionally to get those people to understand what needs to be on the page in order to get that click and get that impression is the key.
Love it. Interesting stuff. Bradley Burney says, okay. So I want to get to the scalability of this, because I mean, this is what I feel like, you know,
Yes.
like the Schema App tool was developed, you know, you are here to help us write it and scale it, right? This is something to like even execute out. I'm curious, can you kind of tell us like, you know, how, you know, again, kind of bring us back to like, you know, why was a Schema App developed and what it can do for us? And if, and you know, if you can share us like a little insight, like how a little demo inside of how it works. I mean, that'd be awesome.
Sure. So how do we start doing this? So I shared a little bit of the story that we're like an agency by accident working with SMBs. And Mark, being smart, was like, I can generate this stuff faster than I can write it. And he's a developer, right? and so his whole idea is like, you know, and we talked about like, you know, focus on strategy versus writing code, right? Like, so whether you're using Merkel's technical SEO generator, like they have a great product that you can use there, or if you like using the WordPress, Yoast has like their API, or in our case, like you can, it's like a very sort of like we use the whole vocabulary. We have a form for single pages, but then the key that we ran into is big companies were reaching out to us and they're like, how do we do this at scale? And the key, like, so we developed something called our Schema App Highlighter. And this is where you can actually like pick elements of the page and map them to the vocabulary. And then you can tell our tools, like, where do those pages exist? What's common amongst them? And then anytime you publish something that matches that, boom, bada bing, it's just done. But like, we don't just do like simple markup, right? Like it needs to be nested. It needs to be multi-type entities. It needs to be able to do all these different things. And the reason here is like, so I grew up at Cisco. You all heard that. My co-founder grew up as an SAP consultant. Like, part of what we look at is really comes back down to taxonomy and site architecture and how you think about doing things at scale. And then it comes back to that, like, how do you like backwards engineer your content, not just for users, but for Google as well. And then when you bring all those things together and you start doing it in an iterative way, and your whole pipeline of content generation, website elements, et cetera, are all aligned, and we're like SEO. Like SEO is not just like a technical individual sport, right? It's a cross-functional sport across the organization. When you get those pieces all together, what our technology now does is it makes it easy, right? Like, so once you do that, like you go drink coffee while we produce schema markup at scale. And then the other piece is integration. And integration's like, how do we get the markup on the site? And this was the other kind of interesting point that Ryan Levering brought up from Google, and we've been talking about this forever. So like, it's like, yay, they're actually thinking about it. Is that they were talking about like, how do you do it programmatically? Meaning like today, if you produce a schema markup, let's say you're working on a small site and you're producing it using the Merkel SEO technical SEO tool, you have to get it on there. Then you're worried about schema drift if they change they change what's on the page, right? That's why our tool sort of does it dynamically. But then you have to like also like get it on the website, right? So you have to talk to the developer, like get it in the header, or if you're using a CMS, like put it in a certain component. And so our whole idea is like, let's integrate it once and then just be done. Let the developers go do all the other things in their backlog that they do. And so Google was talking about how at some point they're going to actually have you like publish your schema directly to them. And this is something, again, like we're sort of already built to do. Like, we do lots of jobs, like we generate the schema markup, we help you with the strategy, and then we also get it to your site. We update it dynamically so it doesn't get schema drift. But you know, we can point that API anywhere, so we can send it And then we also are a semantic tech company. So like the marketers that I talk to, I'm like, great, we have an actual knowledge graph, like not knowledge graph like in Google kind of search terms where we have like a knowledge panel and stuff, like actual semantic ontology of your data. And so I get excited saying like, well, how do we reuse this around personalization? How do we reuse this to crawl and get intelligence? Because I now have structured your content across, if you're an enterprise, like all the complex backend systems, how do we reuse that data set in a really fun, unique way? And that's like again, like where I would say like our innovators, our early customers have been working with us for 3-4 years. Like that's where we're going with them and exploring how structured data becomes even more strategic in the marketing journey.
Oh, I love that. So, I mean, I've been in B2B space for years now as well. And, personalization is huge. So are you talking about like integrating to like maybe Adobe Target and just kind of like personalizing certain experiences like with the data that you're collecting?
Yeah. So like if you think about, so often enterprises have information about like what the user is interacting with.
Yeah.
But then they don't have like the knowledge graph or like the data model to explain like, well, what are those things about what they're interacting with? Well, structured data explains what the thing is and what it mentions and what it's talking about. And so if we can actually, bring in almost like that topic data or all that information from the structured data to marry it with, so if you have like your list of URLs, well, the list of URLs are all the unique identifiers we have in structured data. Boom, bada bing, we connect the both. And all of a sudden you're like, that user is interacting with this type of content about these products, right? If you're talking about a B2B company, therefore like, let's target them with this specific thing. So I think there's a really interesting use case there.
Love it. Okay. All right. We're coming close to time here, but we have one quick question. You want to hear from Luther. Do you have a WordPress plugin?
Of course we do. We're on WordPress, right? So of course we have to build something that we use. So yeah, our WordPress plugin generates it. There's a free version. So if you don't want to pay me any money, great, use the free version. And then it also connects with our Schema App Editor and our highlighter, so we can do things at scale, don't have to write code.
Love it. All right, guys. If you have any more questions, ask them in the live chats. I want to go ahead and ask my last couple of questions here, but I want to go into, like the type of schema that I want to ask, like, what's the type of schema that we should all be using for sure, and what are a few schema that not many people are using that we should be using?
Well, I'll tell you one of my favorites. It kind of is both answers.
Okay.
So I'll say, and I've talked about this one before. So like services schema markup is really interesting. And I actually like multi-typing services with product these days, which we updated just last year in our documentation, because like how many services businesses are out there, right? Like lawyers, accountants, like so many services businesses. And the services schema markup, if you go to schema.org, has some really interesting like properties, like produces or is delivered by, like very appropriate to a service, different from a product. And you might be like, well, Martha, why would you want to make it a service and a product? Well, they updated the documentation in schema.org to describe a product as a product or a service. Okay, that is so not specific. Like schema.org is supposed to be specific. There's supposed to be one type. So what I like about that though is there's rich results for products. So if you multi-type it, you get the best of both worlds. You can actually try to be eligible for those rich results that are like reserved for a product, while also having the properties that are more appropriate for a service. So that's like one of the ones. And then you can like nest FAQ, you can nest video, like you can still go after those other rich results with that thing if you don't necessarily like put prices or have ratings like for that service. So that's one of my favorites. What's another one? Another one that like less used maybe that I sort of like, I'm like, I still love FAQ. Like and that's why I want to give like FAQ is very volatile, but like if you do it right, like you can use it on anything. And I like it for that reason. And then I'm seeing video, just like there's a lot of focus on video. So I would say like video is like the other one. And your updates at the beginning have inspired me. I've been trying to do these like small clip updates on sort of things that I'm seeing. So like use it regularly and sort of in a way that's engaging your audience. And I'm seeing like video performance. The other one that a lot of people don't use, and it plays a lot to my old world at Cisco in support, but I love question and answer. And if you're like a large organization that basically has a high cost of delivering support, oh my goodness, like on your forums, like use question and answer, you're gonna get a ridiculous amount of clicks and impressions, and you're also gonna delight your customers.
Love it. Okay, Thomas has snuck one in here. Before I ask my last question, as the web gets more semantic, how should an affiliate niche site approach schema? Seems like the only opportunity out there is if the product owner is weak on schema.
Yeah, so this is like if you're selling the same product and you're
Okay.
trying to like make money from an affiliate basis. I think like, depending on like, do product schema and do it well, but I would say like focus on the other like content pieces and things that you can do to attract and stand out. So whether that be critic reviews or whether that be a how-tos, FAQs on very specific elements of that product, I would go after those periphery topics that sort of align to it.
Love it, love it. Okay, so I want to go ahead and ask my last question that I ask all my SEO professionals that come on here. If someone wants to get into SEO industry, become an SEO professional, what would your advice be to them?
Oh, well, so for me, it was like, just get your hands dirty. Like, so get a site, whether it be your own personal site, and try things. And then I think my other one, I'm 100% extrovert, right? I think when I first actually attended one of my first conferences, and as the world starts opening up again, go and ask questions. I really find the community to be very welcoming and very like free with advice. And so, in this virtual, or if you can't attend a conference, like connect with someone on LinkedIn, connect with someone on Twitter, ask them the question. I love supporting people going into Schema Markup. I'll do my best to support them. There was, or if there's something new that you're trying to do and it happens to be my super strength, someone was talking about like doing their first SEO presentation, like presenting is my jam. That's what I love to do. It's like, I'm here for you, like reach out if you need help. So I would say just like ask for the help you need and then get your hands dirty, try stuff. Like, don't just like read about it, get your hands dirty and start trying things, because that's the most practical way, I think, to learn.
Love it. Brian says, great stuff, Martha. Love from Alberta. Okay, I want to, if there's anything, how can someone get a hold of you? If they want to ask you that question on how to help them with that SEO presentation, how can someone get a hold of you?
Sure. So the best way to get hold of me is to, you can follow me on Twitter or on LinkedIn. Like all the stuff I produce, we actually like put on our Schema App LinkedIn page. So if you want to follow our Schema App LinkedIn page, you're going to get all of my like quick videos, my knowledge bombs, like my research, articles. There's an article coming up from my co-founder around Schema Drift coming out really soon. But yeah, follow us on LinkedIn, and then feel free to reach out to me directly if there's a question I can ask.
Love it. Love it. Ethan says, great show. Thanks, Dre and Martha. Okay, Martha, if you can hold on for one quick second while I sign off. Just one quick. All right, guys, that concludes another episode of the SEO Video Show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And don't forget to visit our sponsor. Be sure to let me know how many times you saw the logo show up, hrefs.com/AWT, and you'll get some free gifts from them. Till next time, I will see you next week. Peace out.
Thank you for watching. Hope you come back next week. Make sure to subscribe. You don't want to miss a thing. Hope you learn something new, because the vibe is incredible. From the special SEO professionals, SEO video show. Let's work. Want to see you be an SEO expert. Paul Andre DeVera helping you step it up. No delay right now. Time to level up. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe. Woo!